Welcome to Situational Awareness Tactics Podcast. This podcast provides the crucial art of understanding current elements in an environment to increase your safety and survival. Here's your host, forensic psychologist and consultant, Dr. Carlos.
Welcome, everyone. Today we have a very special guest with me. His name is Yousef Badou. He's an educator and trainer with a diverse background. Having grown up in the Middle East, Yousef was better prepared to handle the nuances of the region while deployed as a Marine. He served multiple deployments to Iraq, where he navigated through many tribal factions from the southern border to the northern areas of Iraq. That's where he gained a lot of his experience, folks. Yousef was also certified as an instructor and was requested by name to serve as the Predictive Threat Analysis Lead to a great program called the Marine Corps Combat Hunter. Now what he's done, he's also founded the Emergence. You can find him, actually I'll give you a website in a little bit, but he's also created a great program called Safe Training Systems. We're going to be talking a little bit about that today. Yousef has worked with and been hosted by various law enforcement organizations to include the LAPD Major Crimes Division, International Law Enforcement Educators, and a host of others. By the way, he's going to be doing a presentation at the Protector Symposium. You don't want to miss out on that. You can find that more information by typing that in on Google, or you can also look for on Instagram. Go to, I think it's Byron Rogers has it, Ed's Manifesto. You can find it there for more information how to sign up to the Protector Symposium. Let's not waste any more time, and welcome to the show, Yousef. Welcome, sir.
Hey, welcome aboard. Thanks for having me, and I appreciate you taking the time to get on here and gab with each other.
Absolutely. You know, one of the things I forgot to mention, folks, also, you can go to his website, emergencedisrupt.com. That's E-M-E-R-G-E-N-C-E, disrupt.com. Yeah, so we like to get things going right away, but before we do that, you were one of the lead instructors of the Combat Hunter program. Can you tell us a little bit about, because I know it's a kind of a funny story, about that and what the program's all about?
Yeah, sure. I'll give you the digest, Doctor. Basically what happened in 2004 and 2005 timeframe, we were dealing with a really elusive enemy on the battlefield. It was a sniper. We couldn't figure out how he was operating, and he was doing a lot of damage. So the old kind of militaristic, infantry tactics aren't working anymore for a deceptive enemy like that who would, take a shot, kind of slink off into the civilian population. So we were taking casualties, guys were dying, and we had to get real smart real quick. You've heard necessity is the mother of invention. So we had to develop a way to train people quickly to breed situational awareness and behavior analysis. All right. The big concept of some of your listeners probably heard about is the left-to-bang mindset. That's where it came from, this combat hunter, and that's what we want to do with people is breed that left-to-bang mindset for pre-event indicators of violence or threat before they happen. All right. We need to train how to respond to things, and we're really good at that. We'll respond to everything. Respond to active shooters, respond to emergencies, and so on and so forth. That's great. But what about the other side of the coin? What about all those pre-event indicators? All these incidents you see out there, there's always going to be some indicator. You just have to be trained, basically, in what to look for.
That's great advice, and I can't wait to get more into the woods with it, or deeper into the woods with it here in a minute. But, it's interesting because one of the things I do is forensic psychology, so I work a lot with criminal psychopathology, and it's fascinating because the criminals, especially certain ones, rapists or serial killer guys, types of that nature, even robbers, they're looking at us all the time, and they're scoping us out. Is that fair to say?
100%. There's a great study, and I'm sure you know about, Doctor. It's the GATE study where they did. Oh, yeah. They basically took prisoners and asked them a lot of interview questions and basically they figured out how you pick your target. What's your process for picking your target? And they did analytics on it and found that a certain gait, head down, unconfident, weak, slow, doesn't, you don't know where you're walking. Those are all indicators that they subconsciously, they couldn't even articulate at home, but they all said, yep, there's my target, as opposed to somebody swinging their arms, aggressively, stepping it out. They know, their head's up, they know where they're going. That's someone where even a stronger criminal, where they might look at you and go, I could overpower that person, but I don't want to deal with that today. So absolutely, these people, terrorists, people wishing violence are always watching.
Oh, that's a great point. Good study, too. But it's okay to look at your cell phone, right? That's all right.
Yeah. Sometimes when you're at home.
Yeah, when you're at home is about the only time, really. Yousef, now how did that transform? Because you went from the Combat Hunter program, and I know you brought some of those great skills of yours over to your new safe training systems. How did that work?
Yeah, so who I'm talking to, Doctor, is, most people come at me with a Marine background, combat and all that. They want to, learn about the hardcore, hold them in the nose and kick them in the ass. But honestly, I've been training those guys for a lot of years, and right now there's a lot of great training in place for them. The Marines still have the Combat Hunter program. So I really wanted to shift my focus to not so much the tactical community, but more so the people that have zero to work with. I train a lot of cops. I've never been a cop in my entire life, but I give them a lot of the verbiage that they use every day. So at least cops and military, even if they don't have this specific training, at least they have that mental survival capacity to carry them through some of these situations, whereas our communities or civilians, people who have never dealt with this realm, have zero to go with. So if I can come in there and show you some specific threat behaviors, and I can increase your awareness from 0 to 1%, hey, that's a good day in my book. You know what I mean? It's like I would rather it be 100%, but if all I can do is make you 1% more aware than you were yesterday, that translates into real lives saved and violence disrupted. So,
That's true. So true. That can minimize a lot of damage to that person and really save their lives a lot of times. Let me ask you this. Is your program, does that work apply to civilians? It can also apply to businesses? Or is it just
sure. Yeah. So, still do training for military and law enforcement in some capacities. I'll be flying out for the Navy and still doing stuff there. But the SAFE program, I developed that specifically for our communities, businesses, organizations. So it actually stands for Situational Awareness Employees. And again, why I named it that, I came from the tactical, hardcore, and combat hunter, and some of the stuff you learned, it's more aggressive. You're taking the fight to the enemy. No one here is taking the fight to the enemy on a battlefield in our, companies and organizations or churches. So I've cleaned some of that and made it directly apply to someone walking around every day, whether you're going to church, whether you're going to business. I want to hit these organizations because they have a lot of people that don't know about this stuff.
That's good stuff. Good stuff. Let me ask you this, if we could. We hit 3 different levels. We hit civilians, businesses, and law enforcement. Would you be able to share maybe an example of each of what you would teach that maybe differs?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, good question. There's a lot of meat on this one. So let's do law enforcement first. So I'll give you an example. Happened to me 2 years ago with the sheriffs. I was training basically the instructors for the Sheriff's Academy and advanced officer training. And we're doing what I call a planning cycle. Now, I don't do this with everybody. This is not for everybody. This is for the military or sworn. But basically, we break down and we conduct a full-blown kinetic terrorist attack on a location somewhere in L.A. They pick the location. I'm not going to say where that is, and we do a full-blown attack method on it. What was really cool, as they're mapping the stuff out, they're each components here, you had one officer that actually worked at this geographic location. None of the other officers did. They were just kind of guessing. And basically, they said, when dispatch sends them to, Zone A, then we're going to get the jump on them. And the guy that worked on it goes, what are you talking about, Zone A? And he goes, dispatch has them zoned out A, B, C, and D. And he goes, we don't work like that on that location. Our dispatch only sends us to, 1, 2, 3, or 4. You know what I mean? I'm just, hypothetically. Sure. So I raised my hand. I'm like, wait a minute. Is this a problem if dispatch is sending people to different areas? And they're like, hell yeah, it's a problem. So long story short, we were doing that, learning from that, and we exposed a real physical gap in their planning and procedures. So that's one great example, law enforcement understanding that planning procedure. With businesses, we went in and trained this bank here in my state. We actually had a VP of security come up to me during my training. So you had the VP of HR and VP of security, all right? The VP of security, he's a retired cop. And obviously the VP of HR is not. They have an individual there. The VP of security, using all his innate cop skills that are all subconscious, he looks at this person and their behavior, and he goes, this person's a problem. This person's going to be a shooter. This guy is going to bring a gun to work one day. And he's trying to articulate this to the VP of HR, and she's going, okay, that's great, I understand, but you need to give me more than a bad gut feeling, like I don't feel good about this. So basically they took the behavior training, and we really break down specifically behavioral domains into real specifics. So now he was able to go, and the HR lady and him both got trained in my training. Now they're both able to go to the council, to the company, and explain their case, why they needed to get rid of them. And like A, B, C, D, and E, everyone was on the same page. Everyone is using the same verbiage. And the council goes, hey, Roger, that's a dunk, and they saved the day. long story short, that guy ended up actually doing some, pretty evil stuff after the fact. He worked in IT, so they ended up finding he was doing a lot of more criminal things. So that's a business example right there. And, just your everyday mom and pop civilian going to church, whatever it may be. We just want to raise their awareness. Civilians, anything I can give them is good, because most of them are walking around completely unprepared to deal with violence. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I talk to a lot of people, and I'll tell you, the statistics will tell us 99% of the population is probably not ready to deal with a violent situation. There's a lot of chest beating out there, but if I can go in there and show you these specific behaviors, hey, if you see this, you need to do this. It's this, you need to do this. You can give them something to work with. So, like I said, if I train 1% better, more aware than you were yesterday, that's a good day.
No, that's a great point, and thank you again for your service as well as for helping out law enforcement as well.
No problem. Thank you for the invite.
Yousef, let me ask you this. So in your program, I think it's several days. How does the program work? I mean, can you break it down a little bit of how many days, what's going on? Does it vary depending on who's hiring you?
Sure. So it depends. So I was doing a lot of live training, but I've really dialed that down because I've realized I'm only one guy. I've been doing this for years now, and I'm banging my head against the wall for a long time, but I just can't get this message out fast enough. So now what we've done last year is we're starting online training. It's self-paced. You don't have to leave the comfort of your own home. And we developed not only the basic SAFE course, but the actual instructor course. So you come in the SAFE basic course. This is where you learn the behavioral domains, that left to bang mindset, how to breed a little bit of cunning into people, all right? And the time you walk out of that training, it's 3 modules. Like I said, you can watch all from home. By the time you're walking out, you're increasing the information you're taking in 60, 70%, Depending on what literature you read, they tell you nonverbal communication is made up, that makes up 60 to 70% of a communication. So the question there is how much is a normal person paying attention to on a given day? So let's say they come into the program, they like it, and once they come in, they want to teach their family, they want to teach their friends and employees. We have the entire infrastructure for that. That's the SAFE Instructor program, because that's what happens a lot. Is people hear this message and they bite in. I didn't invent any of this, doctor. I didn't invent any of this. This is all old stuff. But this is the first way it's ever kind of been packaged in this manner, in this message. So we have the basic course and the instructor course if you want to go out there and start knocking out and delivering this message to that. And I delivered that. I produced that SAFE Instructor program to viralize the message.
Oh, I think I want to do it right now. I'll tell you right now.
Got a spot for you, sir.
There you go, folks. You never know. You might see me out there. Yousef, so one of the things we talk a lot about the show is situational awareness and all different aspects. Did you guys cover anything in regards to traveling to another country? Do you do any of that?
Yeah, we do all sorts of stuff. So what I do is I can't be a country expert, right? So if you're going to Russia, you're going to Mongolia, there's no way I get an expert on all those places. So what I try to do is I pull back a little bit, kind of the 10,000 foot, and I give you the tools to break down any situation or any context. So let's say you're traveling. The first thing I teach people is to establish behavioral baselines, but you got to make sure you're observing within context and relevance. So you might travel to an area where here in America we wear seatbelts, and you go to another country and no one wears seatbelts, and you're kind of the only weirdo doing that. You got to make sure you're viewing things within context. And a mistake we make is we often take, let's say, our country of origin, America, we take our biases and our context into a foreign country, and that could be a very bad thing. Something we might know to be comforting, let's say law enforcement. Let's just throw this out there, hypothetically. In America, we see law enforcement as the good guy, the person to be here to protect the innocent and whatnot, so I might move towards a law enforcement figure in a foreign country first. Well, you and I know, Doctor, some of these countries, the cops are almost worse than some of them, you know what I mean? So just basic low-hanging fruit examples of reassessing your context and relevance and establishing baselines in that foreign area.
That's great advice, and sometimes it is unfortunate. A lot of these countries don't have law enforcement they can trust. I can't even imagine living in a world like that. Mm-hmm. Very difficult stuff. Yep. Now, Yousef, in our last few minutes, do you have any stories during the times of your deployment that you use some of these skills that you said, thank God I learned this, because if not, I wouldn't be able to share it with anybody else in the future?
Yeah. There's a lots of stories, Doctor. I mean, I can sit here and tell, the tempo was very high. I was training at Combat Hunter. I was there for 10 years, half as a Marine, half as a civilian contractor. So you can imagine the tempo was high. So we got a lot of great stories. We had literally combat units in the middle of Afghanistan set up a phone call and called us from Afghanistan, from their COC, to tell us a success story they had because of our training. So lots of great wins there, but I want to talk about one specifically that really spurred me on here, because I didn't start out this way. It's just, I taught at Combat Hunter. It was good stuff. I kept teaching military, but I'd never been teaching civilians. But the one incident that really pulled me in was an incident that happened to me a few years ago where I had trained, he was kind of a friend of mine, a work mate, and I trained him in these behavioral skills, very basic, okay? He went back and taught his daughter, she was about 17, 18, I think. He taught his daughter what he learned from me, secondhand. She'd never even met her. And his daughter goes with a boyfriend and some friends to the Las Vegas concert. She was there for the Las Vegas massacre. This dad's telling me this on the phone. I know his daughter. I've met her before. I've never trained her, but I've met her, and I'm going, oh, my God, where is he going? And he finally tells me, he goes, because of your training, my daughter's alive. Because of that training, because of what I told her, she is alive today. Because she's standing in the middle of the crowd with her friends and her boyfriend, and the first volley of shots ring out. And, she's not a tactical person, but she has a gut feeling and she has enough information to make a quick decision. I teach, we want to have a bias for action, do something. And she goes, you know what? Good enough for me. She grabs her boyfriend. She starts running towards the fence line. And her friends are like, what's going on? What's wrong? And she's going, I don't know. I got a bad gut feeling. They're trying to tell her it's fireworks. And she's like in the middle of a concert. That doesn't seem right. And she keeps making her way with her boyfriend. And basically she gets to the end of the fence line. That's when the next strings of fire kind of come out, and that's when everyone realizes, oh, God, people are dying. And they're already jumping the fence, and they're beating feet. They're out of the situation. So she survived. She's okay. Her boyfriend's okay. And this dad's telling me this, so I got pretty choked up myself. That was pretty tough for me to sit through because I didn't know where he was going. But that one really opened my eyes, go, wow, really not prepared. People really need this information.
Oh,
and that's really what spurred me. Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's a powerful story, Yousef. Powerful stuff.
Yeah. Never saw it coming, I'll tell you that much.
Well, never saw that coming?
It was heavy. Yeah, no, I'm getting goosebumps right now talking about it.
I can imagine. So, and just to make sure here in the last couple of minutes to get clarity, so your program actually helps individuals, law enforcement, and business organizations, and you also separately have an instructor training program as well? So there's
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So there's two tracks there.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, and the instructor program it's built like a business in a box. You don't work for me. You don't work for Emergence. Again, my whole motive here, my one motive is to viralize this message. So if I have to enlist, there's over 230 instructors globally right now. We're all over America, Canada, UK, Mexico. So if I have to enlist that army, that's what I got to do to get this message out there and keep people safe.
The reason I ask, I have a lot of followers who are in law enforcement and the military. I went to emergencedisrupt.com, so that I see a lot of that for the safe training program, and there's where we can find also to become an instructor.
Yes, exactly. I will have all the links you'll need to have there, and that'll have all the links to lead you down the path, give you all the information to make it happen.
Excellent stuff. Again, folks, emergencedisrupt.com. I highly recommend you check it out and get the information. If you own a company, if you're law enforcement and military, you might want to look at the instructor courses. Hey, if worst case scenario, it helps you become much more, as Yousef mentioned. Thank you so much, Yousef, for being here.
I appreciate the invite, sir, and thanks to all your listeners for listening to me gab, and I hope I was able to add some value today.
Oh, absolutely. You certainly did. Stay safe out there. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Make sure to, if you want to support the podcast, to share it and subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Stay safe, everyone.